What's the most ridiculous fact you know? There is even a whole collection that was discovered. So some dude did a terrible job trading copper and kept all the complaints he got about it in a room specifically built to house the complaints. Can confirm. Mine had to be hosed down when my appendix exploded and the surgeon said they just stuffed it all back in, and I've been pooping like a trooper ever since, so I'm assuming it got its shit together. Can you imagine being a nurse for the first surgeon to do this? Sorry, you're going to what now? I'm just gonna shove the shit in there. I know I'm not a doctor, but that doesn't sound very proper. Yeah, you're right, you're not a doctor, so grab a handful of intestine and start shoving. I witnessed a surgeon do this while I was doing a clinical rotation in nursing school. He was just pulling loops of intestine out rapidly, examining, I think throwing in a suture every once in a while if needed, and then slopping it all back in while his preferred music was blaring in the background. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I kept looking at my preceptor to gauge whether that was normal. The whole or rotation was nothing like I had imagined it would be. Surgeons are fucking fighter pilots. I remember being in the OR when my wife was having C-section and being young and having no knowledge of hospitals or surgery besides the dramatized version of it on TV shows. I assumed they would be quiet and concentrated, stoic and methodical. I almost had a panic attack when they started working on cutting her open with some Pandora radio playlist blasting music and them chit-chatting about what they were going to eat later for dinner, casual conversation. In my head I was screaming, can you guys focus on her? You're cutting her open. Until I realized they were so calm because they're fucking surgeons. They do this every day, it's their job. They spent years in school for this exact thing. They obviously did quiet down at certain parts of the procedure when they needed to communicate clearly to one another or focus, but to see them cutting open my loved one and having water cooler talk was eye-opening. Lol. So much respect for the men and women that go into the medical field. They have the mental fortitude I can only dream of having one day. My wife's surgeon during her C-section asked me if I wanted to get up and watch them pull my daughter out. It was so weird. Like I am a hunter and a biologist, so the blood and guts wouldn't bother me, but I was like, my baby's fine, you can just weigh her and shit, I'm gonna talk to my wife and be here. After that all I could think was, wow, those docs are brave, because a very strong percentage of people might have looked inside their partner and watched a fucking kid get pulled out of an axe wound and pass the fuck out. That's hilarious. He was basically like, hey man, come check this shit out about your child being pulled from your wife's body. Lol, yeah, surgeons/doctors are a different breed for sure. The surgeon who removed my son's tumor-riddled testicle came up to me and asked if I wanted to see the pictures he took of it. I had a quick look and it was just a shriveled black testicle that had obviously been dead some time. Pretty gross. He then asked if it was okay for him to show his friend who is another doctor, and he seemed way too excited when I said he could. I just imagine him running up to his doctor mate in the hospital. Yo, you gotta see this kid's ball. It's so gross. Surgeon, can confirm. I have zero sense of smell and never have. Long after growing up getting fish and game all day and then becoming a surgeon, I found out that an inherent lack of smell is actually a sign of sociopathy. And that makes perfect sense. I spend large portions of my day convincing strangers they should let me knock them unconscious and then gut them to remove parts and change shit. Or, at the very least, to run a GoPro on a garden hose up their asshole. I fully acknowledge that there's got to be a sociopathic bent to me and my colleagues, and so I'm never surprised to hear people say we're egotistical assholes. I'm using my evil powers for objective good, though. Gotta be worth the occasional whoopsie doodle to Satan, right? Also, I can tell when I need to fart, but unless it's a noisy one I can't really tell what evil I've unleashed until I watch others' reactions. I have definitely committed some crimes against humanity. And yet, because I'm a semi-attractive tiny white woman, I swear to God people have come up with absurd explanations for what is apparently some super bad shit. No. It's my butt. I will take the credit, thank you. Why are you blaming the baby? When my wife gave birth there were complications and they had to wheel her into an operating theater. Obviously I was a bit tense. There were several nurses there and they seemed tense as well, which didn't help. However, I calmed right down when I heard the two anesthetists chatting about golf on the weekend, while keeping an occasional eye on dials or readouts. They were both middle-aged, obviously fairly experienced, and if they weren't worried then I figured I shouldn't be either. After that experience I'm all in favor of the medical professionals chatting away or being completely informal while doing their job. I legit thought about this the other day when I had a minor procedure for my uterus. I was like, wow, I wonder what they all talked about for those 30 minutes I was out with my legs in the most uncomfortable position of my life, no kids and will never carry my own. The anesthesiologist was so nice though, and they had someone in school watching everything and beforehand would tell her everything they were doing, so I would like to think they walked her through what they were doing to me, but who actually knows? I watched a leg amputation a couple of years ago, as a student nurse, and the staff absolutely talked to me and the other student there about what was going on. They also did a hip repair that same day and explained that they'd gotten a new repair kit set up and that's why they were reading the enclosed instructions, and that it wasn't normal for them to do so. I've also heard of surgeons hitting up YouTube when a manufacturer changes up the kits. They do know what they're doing, but sometimes the tools change on them. My husband was so upset they were talking about getting Chinese during my C-section, and I had to explain to him that for them, it is no different than when we are at our jobs chatting. They are at work with their colleagues. They are human too. I found it comforting because his casual conversation made me feel confident in his skills. Absolutely, you were right. I can relate to your husband though. I was mad and vented to my wife that they weren't taking it seriously, which is hilarious that I actually thought that. I think it came from a place of feeling lack of control and the inability to help our loved one who's on the table being cut open. Until I reflected on it later and came to the realization that this is probably their umpteenth time doing this as it's their job law, and if they're calm and collected then I have no reason not to be. Let the professionals have a little normalcy in their day, in what I assume are extremely stressful and chaotic. I'm a third-year medical student who is interested in vascular surgery. My surgeon was asking me why I liked vascular and I said the crazy cool interesting cases and he said never choose a specialty based off the type of procedures because every single one becomes mundane after the 300th time. No joke, this man had opened up a patient's carotid artery, took plaque out and sutured a patch into the vessel over 300 times. It's unreal when blood spurts so hard it hits the ceiling and the surgeon is still talking about the renovations he is doing to his house. That's wild to imagine, Lamau. I have to silently concentrate as I apply antibiotic cream and a band-aid if I get a cut somewhere on me. From the comments I read here, I'm starting to think the show Scrubs is actually an accurate representation of people that work in hospitals. I guess you'd go crazy doing that job if you didn't have a sense of humor, or at least the ability to act like it's just another day at the office. If you stand at the base of the clock tower in London, commonly called Big Ben, with a digital radio tuned to the BBC, you'll hear the sound of the bell striking the hour via the radio before you hear it live. In other words, sound travels faster digitally from the microphone in the tower to the BBC studio to their transmitter to your radio, than it does analogically from the bell to you. That when the Milky Way and Andromeda collide, even though they both have hundreds of billions of stars, the likelihood of any two stars colliding is astronomically low. Everything is unimaginably far apart. Edit, credit to you /Days Wars bringing up the fact that stars are more concentrated in the middle of the galaxy, so collisions are more likely. If any astrophysicists are here, please chime in. Also, Kershessig's latest video said that gas clouds from both galaxies will likely collide, reigniting star formation, which is at an all-time low. In the mid-1960s, a group of robbers used a surplus Finnish anti-tank gun with a homemade suppressor to punch a hole into the side of a vault at an armored car facility in NY State. They stole almost $500,000 in valuables. The incident inspired the Clint Eastwood movie Thunderbolt and Lightfoot. Thanks, that was an interesting read. I was sad to see that singer died, suicide. Then I read about the prison riot, https://n.am.wikipedia.org/wiki/attica_prison_riot, and realized he must have seen some horrible things that day, leading to a lot of mental stress and thus his death. Pretty neat that he kept quiet about his crew in court, and they got away with the money. Makes me wonder where they are today. Likely using a wiper system and a very large suppressor made for the round. Suppressors can be extremely effective in their job when A, you don't need to fire large amounts of ammunition out of it, and B, it doesn't need to last long. So one round going through multiple wiper stages and capturing a lot of the gas from the round would be end up heating the shit out of it and of course wearing the wipers down very quickly, but if you only need one shot, that's the way to do it. Straight from the article. The gang had modified the Lottie for their purposes. They created a large canister-like suppressor and attached at the end of the barrel. They also used several mattresses and heavy blankets to help muffle the blast off the 20mm cannon. Singer's men had also developed a special mount for the AT rifle to help them blast through the foot-thick cement and steel reinforced vault wall. Also, from what I have seen, pillows or a loaf of bread makes a better silencer than a silencer, but there is not much reuse and I don't know if they can affect the bullet. Also not good for aiming. Your eyes have a different immune system than the rest of your body. If they knew about each other, your eyes would basically start dissolving, as your immune system attacks your own eyes. Fear not, your brain won't let that happen. Can confirm. I read this somewhere, so when I started smelling a rather fishy odor that I couldn't tie to anything, I started sniffing various electricals and realized my electronic knitting machine was dangerously overheating. As I would have left it on overnight to avoid losing the place in the pattern, I'm very glad I read that random piece of info somewhere.